rebels because they've resorted to brigandry and corruption and murder, kidnapping. ISIS comes in and it says, we're going to impose discipline. So the trash will be collected, the hospitals will run, the bakeries will be. And by the way, because we're ISIS, we know the regime isn't going to bomb us. So you have a measure of protection from the regime, too. They cut a deal.
Yeah, this is very important.
They cut a deal. You know, they say, fine, we'll work with you now because it's faute de mieux. There's no alternative. Foreign fighters, there tends to be different typologies. So one typology is, let's start with the basest or the most ridiculous explanation. Thrill seekers, sociopaths, people who are drawn to ultraviolence in any form or manifestation. So it could be, I mean, if it's not ISIS, it would be neo-Nazis or Shining Path or some kind of Maoist insurgency in Asia. They love the thrill of the totalitarian kind of movements. Then you have Muslims who are not necessarily even pious, much less radicalized, but they have seen what has gone on in the region, not just in the last 4 or 5 years, but going back to 2003. The dispossession of the Sunnis in Iraq. Saddam is knocked out, the Sunnis lose, the Ba'ath Party is disintegrated, the military is disbanded, an insurgency roils, Al-Qaeda in Iraq comes in, and then it's the rise of Maliki and a pro-Iranian sort of Shia chauvinist government in Iraq. That has driven them mad, and then 4 years of attritional warfare in Syria, where the West has not lifted a finger to help Sunnis who are being ethnically cleansed, barrel bombed, gassed, you name it, gang raped in prisons, all the rest of it. So there's you know, I always argue that with ISIS, it's not just about terror. It's not about just jihad. There's a political project that underwrites the whole thing. And Sunni restoration, or the projection of Sunni power, is very, very key to understanding this. And indeed, I mean, if you look at the upper ranks of ISIS, who's controlling it beyond Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? Who are these guys? Saddam Hussein henchmen, Mukhabarat, Iraqi military. So professionally trained soldiers, professionally trained intelligence operatives, trained, by the way, by the KGB and the Stasi, right? They know how to do surveillance states, they know how to do counterintelligence, they know how to run spy rings, they know how to creep into a territory and take over a territory before they even take it over. This is how Daesh does it. You know, they come in, they send in spies, they cultivate and they recruit people, they steal away you know, fighters and rebels from FSA or Islamist brigades. And then when their tank columns or their advancing army comes in, the town just gives itself over to them without even putting up a fight. That's why they can take a whole city or a whole town with very few fighters, because they've already won over the population. Then you have, you know, on the other hand, people who come in because they are indeed of a jihadi or Islamist orientation, and they just admire what ISIS is selling. I mean, the marketing of ISIS is very powerful. It's, you know, it's the Zarqawist ideology. So too ultraist, too extreme for Al-Qaeda. And also, what does it say? We've already delivered the caliphate. This isn't something in the making. This isn't a future prospect. It is here. The caliphate has been established. This is the chant. So for Muslims who aren't drawn to this ideology, who don't believe in the kind of barbarism setting a man on fire in a cage, the idea, though, that ISIS is tapping into these wellsprings of Islamic history and Islamic glory. Salah ad-Din preached from the Al-Zangi Mosque in Mosul before going to fight the Crusades, Second Crusades. It's very powerful. We talked to an anthropologist, Scott Atran, who told us there's a Spanish imam he knows, very moderate guy, very pro-West, the kind of person that would go to Obama's Countering Violent Extremism conference. But even he admits that when he hears the caliphate has been established, the hairs on the back of his neck stand up.
Really?
Yeah. So ISIS it's selling a very intoxicating vision, even to those who wouldn't necessarily be drawn to all of the awful things that ISIS can do. But again, this comes back to the political component.
Yeah.
If you know how to control human psychology, if you know how to elicit the right emotional response, that's half the game. They also control the Western news cycle. Every time they put a video, every time they issue Dabek magazine,
They're controlling media.
they know that you and I will be sitting here talking about it. They listen very attentively to what U.S. policymakers say. They watch CNN, Al Jazeera. They want to see how their message is being disseminated. And people, they scratch their heads. They're completely befuddled. Why would anyone want to go join a movement that rapes women, sets people on fire and all that? Well, look at how they justify it. Look at how they rationalize it. Muazzez al-Qasasbah is part of a, apostate regime in bed with the Crusaders and the Jews and the Rafida, and he's dropping bombs on Muslim babies, so of course we kill him, because this is what the West does to us. Again, if you're in Syria, if you're in Iraq, or even if you're not, if you're in Tunisia or in Saudi Arabia and you see this, you don't necessarily disagree, depending on your own mindset.
Yeah. Mr. Weiss, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.